My name is Brandy, I'm 28 years old, and I was standing in my wedding dress fitting room when my entire world shattered with one phone call. My dad's voice was casual, like he was discussing the weather, not destroying 10 years of my sacrifices. "We're giving your wedding fund to Serena. She needs it for emergency surgery." Emergency surgery? My sister needed a Brazilian butt lift to save her fake relationship. But what my fiancé did next would change not just our wedding, but our entire family forever. Before we continue this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you planning your own wedding, or maybe you've dealt with family drama too? Please hit that like button if you've ever felt overshadowed by a sibling, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life family stories. Trust me, what Derek did to protect our future will absolutely blow your mind. Let's dive into how one man's clever strategy exposed years of toxic family dynamics and taught everyone a lesson they'll never forget. Growing up as the older daughter in our family meant I learned responsibility before I learned how to ride a bike. While other kids spent their allowance on candy and toys, I was saving every penny in my pink piggy bank, already understanding that if I wanted something in life, I had to earn it myself. My parents, Robert and Linda, weren't bad people, but they had very different approaches to raising their two daughters. I was expected to be the mature one, the responsible one, the one who never caused problems. My sister Serena, for years younger, was forever the baby who needed protection from the harsh realities of the world. I started working at 16, taking shifts at the local diner after school and on weekends. The smell of coffee and bacon became my perfume, and I learned to smile even when my feet screamed from standing for 8 hours straight. Every paycheck went straight into my savings account, minus a small amount for gas and necessities. My classmates drove new cars and wore designer clothes while I made do with thrift store finds and my beat-up Honda Civic that coughed more than it purred. But I had a goal, a promise that kept me going through those exhausting years. When I turned 18, my parents sat me down for what they called an important family discussion. My dad, always the businessman even though he just managed a hardware store, pulled out an official-looking document. "Brandy, we want to teach you about financial responsibility and reward your hard work," he said, adjusting his reading glasses. "For every dollar you save toward your future wedding, we'll match it. This fund will be yours when you get married, up to $30,000 from you, $60,000 total." He had me sign the agreement, saying it would teach me about contracts and commitment. I was thrilled, seeing it as my parents' way of investing in my future. College was a blur of studying, working, and saving. I earned scholarships that covered most of my tuition, but I still worked 30 hours a week at the diner to avoid student loans and keep adding to my wedding fund. My roommates partied and spent spring breaks in Cancun while I picked up extra shifts and studied in the library. They called me boring, but I called myself focused. Serena, meanwhile, enrolled in community college for one semester before deciding it was too stressful. My parents consoled her, saying college wasn't for everyone, and let her move back home where she spent her days shopping and posting selfies on Instagram. Everything changed when I met Derek at 26. I had just started as a junior accountant at Morrison Financial, and he was the senior analyst who trained me. Derek understood my drive because he shared it. Raised by a single mother who cleaned houses to put him through school, he knew the value of every dollar earned through honest work. Our first date wasn't fancy, just coffee and a walk in the park, but we talked for 5 hours about our dreams, our struggles, and our determination to build something meaningful together. He didn't judge me for driving an old car or wearing the same blazer to work 3 times a week. Instead, he admired my dedication and shared his own stories of sacrifice. As Derek and I grew closer, the contrast between my life and Serena's became even more stark. At 19, she convinced our parents she needed a nose job to fix her deviated septum, though we all knew it was purely cosmetic. At 22, it was breast augmentation because she felt disproportionate. At 24, lip fillers became necessary for her self-esteem. Each time, my parents found the money, usually dipping into their retirement savings or taking out small loans. "She's finding herself," my mother would say when I questioned the wisdom of funding these procedures. Everyone develops confidence differently. The latest drama in Serena's life involved Dr. Mitchell Carlton, a prominent plastic surgeon she claimed to be dating. She met him during one of her consultations and became instantly obsessed. The 45-year-old doctor with silver temples and a Maserati became all she talked about at family dinners. "Mitchell says I have the bone structure of a model," she'd gush, while our parents beamed with pride. I noticed she never brought him around, and her evidence of their relationship consisted mainly of selfies taken in his waiting room and vague text messages she'd flash quickly before tucking her phone away. By the time Derek proposed on our 2-year anniversary, I had saved $28,000. My parents had been true to their word so far, showing me bank statements of their matching funds. We planned a beautiful but sensible wedding for 150 guests at a historic inn outside the city. Every vendor was carefully chosen for value and quality. I DIY'd what I could, enlisted talented friends, and found creative solutions to keep costs down while still creating the elegant celebration we dreamed of. The total budget would use most of the $60,000, but we'd have enough left to start our married life without debt. Derek supported every decision, often staying up late with me to assemble centerpieces or research honeymoon deals. His mother, Grace, welcomed me like the daughter she never had, teaching me her family recipes and sharing stories of Derek's childhood. His younger brother, Marcus, joked that Derek had finally found someone as wonderfully weird about money as he was. I felt like I had found not just a partner, but a whole family who valued what I valued. The wedding was 3 months away, and everything was falling perfectly into place. I should have known that in my family, perfect never lasted long. 3 weeks before the wedding, I was sitting at my desk reviewing the final vendor payments when my phone buzzed with a text from my dad. "Family meeting tonight. Important. Come alone." The last 3 words sent a chill down my spine. Derek and I had become a unit over the past months, tackling wedding planning and life decisions together. Being asked to come without him felt wrong, but I pushed down my unease and agreed. After work, I drove to my childhood home, noting Serena's new BMW in the driveway, a gift from Dr. Carlton she'd bragged about, though I suspected our parents' home equity loan had more to do with it. The moment I walked into the living room, I knew something was seriously wrong. Serena sat on the couch, mascara streaking down her face in perfect black rivers. My mother perched beside her, rubbing her back in soothing circles, while my dad stood by the fireplace with his serious face on. The same face he wore when he told us Grandpa had died or when he got laid off from his first management job. My stomach clenched as I took the chair across from them, feeling suddenly like I was on trial for a crime I didn't know I'd committed. "Brandy, thank you for coming," my dad began, clearing his throat. "We need to discuss a family emergency." I waited, watching Serena's theatrical sniffling intensify. She always knew how to play our parents, and I could see she had them wrapped around her finger once again. "Serena's relationship with Dr. Carlton has reached a critical point," he continued, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from rolling my eyes. Everything in Serena's life was always critical, urgent, an emergency that required immediate attention and, usually, immediate funds. Through hiccuping sobs, Serena launched into her tale of woe. "Mitchell says he loves me, but he's used to dating models and actresses. He mentioned that his ex had this perfect body, and I know he compares me to her. He just suggested, that if I got a Brazilian butt lift, it would show I'm serious about being the kind of woman who belongs in his world. This is my chance at true love, Brandy. My chance at the life I deserve. But the surgery costs $30,000, and it has to be done soon or I'll lose him forever." The words hung in the air like toxic fog, and I waited for my parents to shut down this ridiculous manipulation. Instead, my dad shifted uncomfortably and delivered the blow that would shatter my trust in them forever. "We've decided to give Serena your wedding fund. You have Derek now, a good man with a stable job. He can provide for the wedding. Serena needs this chance at happiness. The room spun as I processed his words. 10 years of 16-hour days, of worn shoes and packed lunches, of saying no to every invitation that cost money, all dismissed in a single sentence. You're joking, I managed to choke out, but the look on their faces told me this was deadly serious. That's my money. Money I earned. Money you promised to match for my wedding that's in 3 weeks. The venue needs $15,000, the catering $8,000, the photographer $3,000. Everything is booked, deposits paid. My voice rose with each word, panic and fury battling for dominance. My mother finally looked up, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. Sweetheart, family helps family. You're the strong one. You'll figure it out. Serena's tears miraculously stopped as she sensed victory. You've always had everything so easy, Brandy. Good grades came naturally to you. You found Derek without even trying. I've had to fight for every bit of happiness, and now when I finally have a chance at love, you want to deny me that too? You have a man who loves you. What do I have? The manipulation was so transparent I wanted to scream. Easy? Did she think those grades came without studying until 3 a.m.? That Derek fell in love with me while I was sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram? This is theft, I said, standing up so quickly the chair scraped against the hardwood floor. You made me sign a contract when I was 18. You have legal obligations here. My dad's face darkened at the mention of legalities. Don't threaten your family, Brandy. We're doing what's best for everyone. If Derek really loves you, he'll understand. True love doesn't need an expensive party. The hypocrisy burned like acid in my throat. These were the same people who spent $40,000 on Serena's various surgeries but couldn't understand why I'd want the wedding I'd worked for. I stormed out without another word, my hands shaking so badly I had to sit in my car for 5 minutes before I could drive safely. The text messages started before I even left their street. Serena, don't be selfish. I need this. Mom, please understand, honey. Come back and let's talk. Dad, you're overreacting. Family comes first. Each message felt like another knife in my back. I drove straight to Derek's apartment, bursting through the door in tears, barely able to articulate what had happened through my sobs of rage and betrayal. Derek held me while I ugly cried into his shirt, ruining it with makeup and tears. When I finally calmed down enough to tell him the whole story, I watched his face cycle through emotions, shock, fury, disgust, and then something else. A strange calmness settled over his features, and he pulled back to look me in the eye. Don't cancel anything yet, he said, his voice steady and controlled. Trust me on this. Your family needs a lesson about consequences, and I think I know just how to deliver it. The determination in his eyes both thrilled and terrified me. Derek, we can't afford the wedding without that money. I've already suggested we just go to the courthouse, have a small ceremony with your family. I was in crisis mode, ready to salvage what I could from this disaster. But Derek shook his head, a slight smile playing at his lips. Brandy, there are things about my financial situation I haven't told you, not because I was hiding them, but because I wanted to be sure you loved me for me, not for money. Let's just say I can handle the wedding expenses. But that's not the point. The point is that your family stole from you, and they're going to learn that actions have consequences. That night, Derek revealed a side of himself I'd only glimpsed in fragments. While I knew he was financially responsible and had some investments, I didn't realize the extent of his wealth. My mother taught me to live below my means, he explained, pulling out his laptop and showing me his portfolio. I've been investing since I was 18, lived like a college student even after getting promoted, and made some very lucky choices with tech stocks. The numbers on the screen made my eyes widen. He could have paid for our entire wedding 10 times over without blinking. But this isn't about money, Brandy. It's about respect and justice. The next morning, Derek called his cousin Bradley, a contract lawyer who specialized in family law. Over coffee and pastries, Bradley reviewed the agreement I'd signed with my father 10 years ago. "This is actually legally binding," he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Your father wrote this up trying to be official, probably downloaded a template online. But in doing so, he created a valid contract. They owe you that money, especially since you can prove you upheld your end of the bargain." Hope bloomed in my chest for the first time since the disastrous family meeting. Derek's next move surprised me even more. He hired a private investigator named Teresa Chen, a former cop turned PI who specialized in background checks and infidelity cases. "I want to know everything about this Dr. Carlton and his relationship with Serena," Derek instructed. "Something doesn't smell right about this whole situation." Teresa nodded, taking notes in a small leather notebook. "Give me 72 hours. If there's dirt to find, I'll find it." Her confidence was contagious, and I found myself hoping she'd uncover something that would expose Serena's lies. While we waited for information, the family drama exploded on social media. Serena, never one to keep things private, posted a cryptic message about family betraying you when you need them most and true colors showing in dark times. The comments poured in, with various relatives taking sides. Most who knew the full story sided with me, but some distant cousins who only knew Serena's version rallied to her defense. My phone rang constantly with calls I didn't answer, each voicemail more guilt-trippy than the last. The one bright spot came from my grandmother Ruth, my dad's mother. At 85, she was sharp as a tack and took no nonsense from anyone. "I'm ashamed of Robert," she said during our phone call, her voice strong despite her age. "I raised him better than this. That girl has been spoiled rotten, and now she's manipulating everyone with crocodile tears. You stand your ground, Brandy. And if you need money for the wedding, I'll liquidate some bonds." I thanked her but assured her Derek and I would handle it. Her support meant more than any financial help. My Aunt Monica, my mother's sister, offered what she could, but her teacher's salary didn't allow for much. "I can maybe give you 2,000, she said apologetically. "I wish it were more. I've watched this favoritism for years and said nothing. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." Her words validated what I'd felt my entire life but had been gaslit into doubting. I wasn't imagining the unequal treatment. Others saw it too but had chosen silence over conflict. Now, the consequences of that silence were destroying my family. 3 days after hiring her, Teresa called with information that exceeded our wildest expectations. "Dr. Mitchell Carlton is indeed a prominent plastic surgeon," she began, "and he's also very married with a pregnant wife. Moreover, your sister isn't his girlfriend. She's a patient he's considering reporting to the police for stalking. I have copies of the restraining order paperwork his lawyer prepared but hasn't filed yet, hoping she'll stop on her own." My jaw dropped. Serena hadn't just exaggerated their relationship, she'd invented it entirely. "There's more," Teresa continued. "Those text messages she shows everyone? They're from his receptionist responding to her constant appointment requests. The BMW? I traced the financing. Your parents co-signed for it, using their house as collateral. Dr. Carlton has never given her a gift, taken her on a date, or shown any romantic interest. According to his staff, she waits in the parking lot to ambush him, takes photos without consent, and has been banned from 2 of his clinic locations. The delusion was worse than I'd imagined. My sister wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerously obsessed." Derek studied the information with the same intensity he brought to financial reports. "We'll present this at Sunday dinner," he decided. "Your whole family needs to see this, not just your parents. Bradley will be there with the legal documents about the wedding fund, and will bring a special guest." The gleam in his eye told me he had something spectacular planned. "Who?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew. Mrs. Carlton. She's agreed to attend after I explained the situation. She wants to put an end to this before her husband has to involve the police. The moral weight of what we were about to do sat heavy on my shoulders. Part of me wanted to protect Serena despite everything, the big sister instinct still strong after all these years. Are we doing the right thing? I asked Derek that night as we lay in bed. She's clearly unwell. Maybe she needs help, not humiliation. Derek pulled me close, his voice gentle but firm. She needs both. Your parents' enabling has led her to this point. Sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing back up. We're not destroying her, we're stopping her from destroying herself and others. My mother finally called the next day, not to apologize but to double down on their decision. Serena is fragile, Brandy. She doesn't have your strength. We have to protect her. I wanted to scream that they'd created that fragility by never letting her face consequences, but I kept my voice steady. You're not protecting her, Mom. You're enabling dangerous behavior. But you'll see that soon enough. She sighed heavily. Why can't you just be supportive? Derek has money. You've told me about his promotions. This wouldn't hurt you as much as it would hurt her. The fact that she'd calculated our finances to justify theft made me realize how deep the favoritism ran. As Sunday approached, I found myself oddly calm. The wedding planning continued, vendors assured that payment was coming. Derek handled everything with quiet efficiency, never making me feel like a charity case. We're partners, he reminded me when I expressed discomfort about him paying. What's mine is yours. But this situation is about more than money. It's about drawing boundaries with your family so our future children never experience this favoritism. The mention of children made my heart flutter. Even in this chaos, he was thinking of our future, protecting not just me but the family we'd build together. Sunday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that normally made me think of apple cider and cozy sweaters. Instead, my stomach churned with anxiety as Derek and I prepared for what would likely be the most dramatic family dinner in our history. I dressed carefully, choosing a conservative navy dress that said successful professional rather than desperate bride. Derek wore his best suit, looking every inch the corporate executive he was becoming. Remember, he said, kissing my forehead, we're not doing this to be cruel. We're doing this because the truth needs to come out. We arrived at my parents' house precisely at 5, the agreed-upon dinner time. Several cars already filled the driveway, including Grandma Ruth's silver Buick and various aunts' and uncles' vehicles. My parents had invited extended family, probably hoping the crowd would pressure me into backing down. They didn't realize they'd just provided a bigger audience for what was about to unfold. Derek squeezed my hand as we walked to the door, Bradley following behind us with his briefcase, looking every bit the serious lawyer he was. The scene inside was almost comically perfect. Serena held court in the living room, showing off glossy brochures from the clinic where she planned to have her surgery. The recovery in Cabo is essential, she explained to our captivated Aunt Diana. Mitchell says the sea air helps with healing. She dressed for the part of a surgeon's girlfriend, wearing what she probably thought looked expensive but screamed trying too hard. My parents flanked her like bodyguards, my mother nodding along enthusiastically while my father looked uncomfortable but determined. Brandy's here, someone announced unnecessarily, and all eyes turned to us. The room fell silent except for Grandma Ruth's snort of derision. Finally, someone with sense arrives, she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. I saw my mother shoot her a warning look, but Grandma was past caring about keeping the peace. At 85, she'd earned the right to speak her mind, and speak it she would. Robert, you should be ashamed, she continued. Stealing from one daughter to fund another's foolishness. Mother, please, my dad started, but Derek stepped forward, commanding the room's attention with his quiet confidence. Actually, Mrs. Ruth is right. We need to discuss what's really happening here. But first, we're waiting for one more guest. The doorbell rang as if on cue, and I watched Serena's face, knowing she had no idea what was coming. Derek opened the door to reveal an elegantly dressed pregnant woman in her 30s, with auburn hair and kind but tired eyes. Mrs. Elizabeth Carlton had arrived. The transformation in Serena was instant and devastating. Her perfectly contoured face drained of color, her hands began to shake, and she shrunk back into the couch as if trying to disappear. What is she doing here? She stammered, all pretense of confidence evaporating. Mrs. Carlton stepped into the room with remarkable grace considering the circumstances. I'm here because Mr. Derek contacted me about a situation involving my husband and Miss Serena. I think it's time everyone heard the truth. You're lying, Serena burst out, but her voice lacked conviction. Mitchell loves me. He's going to leave you for me. He told me so. Mrs. Carlton's expression shifted from tired to pitying. My husband has never spoken to you outside of professional consultations, Miss Serena. In fact, he's documented numerous instances of stalking behavior. You've waited outside our children's school, sent flowers to his office claiming they're from him to you, and created an entirely fictional relationship that exists only in your mind. The room erupted. My mother gasped, my father's face turned purple, and various relatives began talking all at once. Cousin Janet, never one to miss drama, had her phone out and was definitely live streaming to Facebook, which would normally annoy me but today seemed like poetic justice. Serena tried to salvage the situation, tears streaming down her face as she insisted Mrs. Carlton was jealous, that she was lying, that their love was real. But Teresa's evidence, which Derek presented on his tablet, was damning. These are the actual text messages, Derek explained, showing the screen to my parents. They're from the receptionist, not Dr. Carlton. This is the restraining order draft. Here's security footage of Serena being escorted from the clinic. And this, he paused for effect, is a statement from Dr. Carlton's attorney regarding potential stalking charges if the behavior continues. Each piece of evidence hit like a physical blow. My parents seemed to age before our eyes as the reality of what they'd enabled became undeniable. But the BMW, my mother whispered. She said he bought it for her. Bradley stepped forward, pulling documents from his briefcase. Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you co-signed for that vehicle, using your home as collateral. Your daughter has made exactly one payment in 6 months. You're currently at risk of foreclosure if this continues. The financial reality seemed to hit my father harder than the emotional betrayal. He sank into his armchair, head in his hands, finally seeing how deep they'd sunk in their efforts to keep Serena happy. Grandma Ruth stood up, using her cane for emphasis rather than support. I'm writing you out of my will, Robert. And you, she pointed at Serena, need serious help. Not surgery, not money, but psychiatric help. Serena's composure finally shattered completely. I just wanted someone to love me the way Derek loves Brandy, she wailed. Why does she get everything? The good grades, the good job, the perfect man? I deserve love too. The manipulation was reflexive, but for once, it didn't work. You want to know why? I finally spoke, my voice carrying across the room. Because I worked for it. I didn't wait for someone to hand me happiness. I built it, sacrifice by sacrifice. While you were getting your third nose job, I was studying for my CPA exam. While you were stalking married men, I was building a relationship based on mutual respect and real connection. You deserve love, Serena, but first you need to love yourself enough to get help. The words poured out, years of resentment finally given voice. Derek stepped beside me, his presence a steady comfort. Which brings us to the matter of the stolen wedding funds, he announced. Bradley distributed copies of the original contract to everyone present. This is a legally binding agreement. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson owe Brandy $30,000 in matched funds for her wedding. They can either honor this contract, or we can pursue legal action. The threat hung in the air, heavy with implications. My father looked at the contract he'd written so proudly 10 years ago, now a weapon turned against him. Serena attempted one last manipulation, clutching her chest dramatically. "I'll hurt myself if you don't stop this," she threatened. "This is too much. I can't handle everyone turning against me." In the past, this would have worked. My parents would have rushed to comfort her, would have given her anything to stop the threat. But Mrs. Carlton, who dealt with unstable patients before, calmly pulled out her phone. "Then we need to call 911 for a wellness check. Threatening self-harm is a serious matter requiring immediate professional intervention." The bluff called, Serena deflated. "I didn't mean it," she muttered, but the damage was done. Even my enabling mother looked at her with new eyes, seeing perhaps for the first time the monster they'd created through their favoritism. The room was silent except for Janet's whispered commentary to her Facebook audience and Grandma Ruth's disgusted tootang. Finally, my father spoke, his voice broken. "We'll return the money, Brandy. I'll go to the bank first thing tomorrow." Victory tasted bitter in my mouth, but it was necessary. "There's one more thing," Derek announced. "Serena needs to agree to psychiatric treatment, or Mrs. Carlton will proceed with the restraining order. This isn't negotiable." Serena nodded numbly, all fight gone from her. Mrs. Carlton, her point made, gracefully excused herself, pausing only to wish Derek and me well on our upcoming wedding. As the door closed behind her, the family dinner that had started as Serena's stage became her intervention, and perhaps, the first step toward everyone's healing. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my emotional state perfectly. Despite our victory, I felt hollow. Family wasn't supposed to require legal threats and public humiliation to do the right thing. I was nursing my second cup of coffee when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing in the rain, looking older than his 58 years. He held a bank envelope in one hand and what appeared to be a letter in the other. Derek was in the shower, so I faced this moment alone. "Can I come in?" Dad asked, and for the first time in my memory, he looked uncertain. I stepped aside, noting how he dripped on our entry mat like a scolded dog. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Derek and I had planned our dreams just weeks ago. Dad pushed the envelope across to me. "Cashier's check for $30,000, he said quietly. "Your money. I'm sorry it came to this." The check sat between us, representing so much more than wedding funds. It was years of inequality finally being addressed. "I failed you," he continued, surprising me with his directness. "Your mother and I started therapy this morning. Emergency session. The therapist helped us see what we've done. We created a dynamic where you had to be perfect and Serena could do no wrong. It started when she was born premature, so tiny and fragile. We were so scared of losing her that we forgot we could lose you in different ways." His voice cracked, and I saw tears in my eyes. My strong, stubborn father was crying in my kitchen, and I didn't know how to process it. He slid the letter across next. "This is from your mother. She couldn't face you yet, but she wanted you to know she's sorry. Really sorry, not just saying it to keep peace." I opened the letter, recognizing my mother's careful cursive. She detailed memories I'd forgotten, times she'd watched me sacrifice and said nothing, moments she chose Serena's dramatics over my achievements. She admitted to being weak, to taking the easier path of giving in rather than standing firm. She promised to do better, to be better, but understood if I needed time. "Where's Serena?" I asked, part of me still concerned despite everything. Dad's face darkened slightly. "Willowbrook Psychiatric Hospital. She admitted herself last night after the dinner. The doctor says she's been struggling with multiple issues beyond what we saw. Body dysmorphia, shopping addiction, something called histrionic personality disorder. She'll be there at least 30 days. The clinical terms made it real in a way Serena's dramatics never had. My sister was genuinely ill, not just spoiled, and our parents' enabling had prevented her from getting help years earlier. She wrote you something too, Dad said, pulling out a crumpled piece of notebook paper. The doctor said writing helps process emotions. Serena's handwriting was messier than usual, probably from medication or emotional distress. The letter was short but shocking in its honesty. She admitted to knowing the relationship with Dr. Carlton was fantasy but being unable to stop herself. She wrote about watching my life and feeling like she was drowning while I swam effortlessly. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding that her brain worked differently, that what seemed like manipulation was often panic disguised as control. Derek emerged from the bedroom, dressed for work but clearly reading the room. He kissed my head and squeezed my shoulder, a silent support that my father noticed. "You found a good one," Dad said to me. "Better than I was to your mother. He fights for you." Derek poured himself coffee, giving us space but staying close enough that I felt supported. "Mr. Thompson," he said formally, "Brandy and I appreciate you making this right. The wedding will go on as planned, but I think everyone needs to understand things will be different moving forward." "Different how?" Dad asked, though he seemed to already know. I found my voice steady and clear. "Boundaries. Real ones. Family dinners will happen, but toxic behavior won't be tolerated. When Serena gets out, she continues treatment or we maintain distance. Mom needs to find her backbone and stop enabling. And you need to recognize that you have two daughters, not one perfect one and one broken one. We're both flawed, both worthy of love, both capable of growth." The words felt like freedom leaving my lips. The talk shifted to logistics. Dad offered to walk me down the aisle still, but I asked for time to decide. 28 years of patterns don't disappear with one apology, no matter how sincere. He understood, saying he'd already told the family to give Derek and me space unless we reached out. "Except Grandma Ruth," he added with a weak smile. "Nobody tells her what to do." That earned a small laugh from me. Grandma had already texted me that morning, proud of how I'd stood up for myself. After Dad left, the wedding preparations resumed with new energy. Our coordinator called, mentioning that another couple had canceled their premium package due to family drama, offering us upgrades at no additional cost. "Karma," Derek said with satisfaction. We accepted the nicer flowers, the extended cocktail hour, the champagne upgrade. Each enhancement felt like the universe apologizing for what we'd endured. My future mother-in-law Grace called, offering to handle any family members who might cause drama at the wedding. "I've got a mean side when someone hurts my children," she promised. 2 weeks before the wedding, I visited Serena at Willowbrook. She looked different without her usual full makeup and designer clothes, younger and more vulnerable in hospital-issued sweats. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "Not manipulation sorry. Real sorry. They're teaching me the difference." We talked for an hour about our childhood, seeing it through new lenses. She remembered feeling like she could never catch up to me, while I remembered feeling like nothing I did mattered compared to her needs. Both perspectives were true and painful. "I'm not coming to the wedding," she said quietly. "Not because I'm angry, but because it should be your day. No drama, no attention-seeking, just you and Derek being happy." It was the most mature thing she'd ever said to me. I hugged her, feeling like I was meeting my real sister for the first time. She showed me her therapy homework, lists of healthy behaviors versus unhealthy ones, identification of triggers, plans for building genuine self-worth. The road ahead was long, but she was finally on it. Derek and I had one last conversation with Bradley about pursuing the contract legally versus accepting the settlement. We chose to let it end with the check, no further legal action. "Family is complicated," Derek said. "But they're showing genuine effort to change. That's worth acknowledging." His grace made me love him more. He could have pushed for penalties, for public acknowledgement of the theft, but he chose mercy. Besides, he added with a grin, your grandmother already punished them better than any court could. Grandma Ruth had indeed made good on her threat, redistributing her will to favor charities and me while leaving my parents and Serena token amounts for reflection purposes, as she put it. Our wedding day dawned perfect, one of those crystalline October mornings where the air itself seemed to sparkle. I stood in the bridal suite at Rosewood Inn, surrounded by my chosen family of friends who'd stood by me through everything. My childhood friend Maria, my college roommate Ashley, Derek's sister-in-law Paula, and surprisingly, my cousin Janet who'd live-streamed the disastrous dinner. That video got 200,000 views, she admitted while doing my hair. People are calling you a hero for standing up to toxic family dynamics. I didn't feel like a hero, just a woman who'd finally found her voice. Grace, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, bustled around making sure everything was perfect. She'd appointed herself my honorary mother for the day, and I gratefully accepted. You're already my daughter, she said, adjusting my veil with tears in her eyes. Today just makes it official. Her warmth filled the spaces my own mother's absence left. Mom had chosen to attend as a regular guest rather than claim the mother of the bride role she'd forfeited. It hurt, but it was honest, and I was learning to appreciate honesty over comfortable lies. The photographer captured genuine moments rather than staged ones, following Derek's specific instructions to focus on real emotions. Through the window, I watched guests arrive. My family occupied one section, looking subdued but present. My father sat with my mother, both dressed appropriately but without the usual fanfare. Grandma Ruth held court near the front, resplendent in purple and telling anyone who'd listen about proper family values. Derek's family filled the other side, relaxed and celebratory, a stark contrast to the tension radiating from mine. The ceremony space took my breath away. The upgrades we'd received transformed an already beautiful venue into something magical. Autumn flowers in deep burgundies and golds lined the aisle, candlelight flickered in crystal hurricanes, and string musicians played softly as guests took their seats. Through it all, I kept thinking about Serena's empty chair. We'd left it there with a small card reading healing in progress, acknowledging her absence while honoring her journey. Some guests whispered about it, but I didn't care. This was our truth, displayed honestly. When the music changed for my entrance, I stood at the double doors alone, having decided that morning to walk myself down the aisle. My father had accepted the decision with grace, understanding it wasn't punishment but empowerment. I wore my grandmother's pearl necklace, something old and precious, paired with the modern dress I'd chosen myself. Each step down the aisle felt like shedding old skin, walking away from who I'd been expected to be toward who I chose to become. Derek waited at the altar, tears streaming down his face unashamedly. Marcus, his best man, handed him a tissue while grinning. The entire wedding party looked perfect, but more importantly, they looked happy. Real happy, not the forced variety I'd grown up documenting in family photos. When I reached Derek, he whispered, "You're the strongest person I know," before taking my hands. The officiant, Derek's childhood pastor, began the ceremony with words about building foundations on truth rather than sand. Our vows weren't traditional. Derek went first, his voice strong and clear. "Brandy, you taught me that love isn't just feeling but choosing. Every day, you choose kindness despite learning cruelty. You choose honesty despite being fed lies. You choose to build rather than tear down. I promise to choose you every single day, to be your soft place to land and your strongest support. You'll never be second choice again, never be asked to shrink so others can grow. With me, you can be exactly who you are, brilliant and bold and beautifully yourself." My vows came from the heart, written and rewritten dozen times until they captured exactly what I needed to say. Derek, you saw through the facade to who I really was, tired and trying but still hoping. You didn't rescue me. You stood beside me while I rescued myself. You showed me that real love multiplies rather than divides, strengthens rather than diminishes. I promised to build our life on truth, even when lies would be easier. I promised to teach our children their worth from day one, to break cycles rather than repeat them. I promised to choose us, always us, over any voice that says we're not enough. The kiss that sealed our union felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. The recessional music swelled, and we practically floated back down the aisle. In the receiving line, family dynamics played out predictably. My parents offered stilted congratulations, clearly unsure of their place in this new reality. "We're happy for you," Mom managed, and I believed she meant it, even if she didn't know how to show it naturally anymore. Dad handed Derek an envelope, which we discovered later contained a heartfelt letter about accepting him as a son and promising to earn back our trust. The reception transformed potentially awkward moments into celebrations. When it came time for the father-daughter dance, I'd chosen to dance with Grandma Ruth instead. At 85, she moved slowly but with dignity, whispering in my ear about how proud she was. "You broke the chain, sweetheart. Your children will never doubt their worth." The traditionally mother-son dance saw Derek dancing with Grace, both of them laughing as she deliberately stepped on his feet, a family joke about his teenage dancing. These moments, unconventional but genuine, defined our wedding. During dinner, Derek's mentor, Mr. Yamamoto, approached our table. The distinguished gentleman had built his accounting firm from nothing into a regional powerhouse. "Derek speaks highly of your analytical skills," he said to me. "I'm retiring next year and looking for partners to take over. Interested?" The offer stunned me. Here was professional recognition based on merit, not family connections or manipulation. I managed to stammer out interest in discussing it further, my mind reeling at possibilities I'd never imagined possible. The speeches ranged from hilarious to heartfelt. Marcus roasted Derek about his frugal habits while praising his loyalty. Maria talked about watching me bloom despite difficult soil. But it was my father's unscheduled speech that shocked everyone. He stood up, clearly nervous, and spoke without notes. "I failed Brandy in many ways. I taught her about contracts and commitments but forgot to honor my own. Today, watching her choose joy despite pain, I see the woman she became not because of us but in spite of us. Derek, treasure her. She's worth more than any of us realized." He sat down quickly, but the words lingered. The dancing portion of the reception showed our two families slowly, cautiously beginning to blend. Aunt Monica chatted with Derek's Aunt Sarah about teaching. Cousins from both sides bonded over similar ages and interests. Even my mother, after a few glasses of champagne, relaxed enough to laugh genuinely at one of Grace's stories. The healing wasn't complete, might never be complete, but it was beginning. Janet continued documenting everything, but now it felt like preserving hope rather than drama. Near midnight, as the reception wound down, Derek and I snuck out to the inn's balcony for a moment alone. The stars above seemed especially bright, or maybe joy made everything shine brighter. "We did it," I said, leaning into his warmth. "We got married despite everything." He turned me to face him, his expression serious. "We did more than that. We showed everyone, including ourselves, that toxic patterns can be broken. That's our real wedding gift to each other and to our future." As we kissed under those stars, I felt the chains of generational dysfunction finally, fully break. 6 months after our wedding, I sat in my new office at Yamamoto and Associates, marveling at how much life could change when you stop accepting less than you deserve. The partnership Mr. Yamamoto offered had exceeded my wildest dreams, not just financially but in terms of respect and autonomy. My nameplate read Brandy Chen, CPA, senior partner, and every time I saw it, I remembered the girl who worked double shifts at a diner, believing success meant just surviving. Now I knew it meant thriving on your own terms. The most surprising development came in the form of a thank you card I was currently holding. Serena's handwriting, once used for dramatic suicide notes and manipulation, now carried genuine gratitude. Brandy, today marks 6 months of sobriety from shopping, steady therapy, and my first real job. I'm a receptionist at a non-profit, making barely above minimum wage, but I earned it myself. No lies, no manipulation, just showing up and doing the work. I included my first pay stub not to brag but to share this milestone with my big sister who always knew how to work for what she wanted. Thank you for the tough love that saved my life. Attached to the card was indeed a pay stub, small but significant. I added it to what I'd privately started calling my hope file, evidence that people could change if they truly wanted to. Serena had continued outpatient therapy after her month at Willowbrook, attended support groups for shopping addiction, and slowly rebuilt her life on a foundation of truth. She lived in a small apartment now, having sold the BMW to pay off debts, and took the bus to work. Her Instagram, once filled with fake luxury, now showed simple pleasures like library books and homemade meals. My parents' journey proved more complicated but equally genuine. They'd maintained weekly therapy sessions, both together and separately. Dad called it excavating decades of dirt, learning how his own father's favoritism toward his sister had unconsciously influenced his parenting. Mom discovered her conflict avoidance stemmed from growing up in a volatile household where peace meant survival. Understanding origins didn't excuse behavior but did explain it, giving them tools to change. They'd downsized their house to pay off the equity loan, living more simply but more honestly. The real test came when Serena briefly relapsed, not into stalking but into shopping addiction during a particularly vulnerable period. In the past, my parents would have rushed to pay her credit card bills and smooth everything over. This time, they supported her return to intensive therapy while letting her face the financial consequences. She'd called me crying, not manipulatively but genuinely scared. "They won't save me," she'd said. "Good," I'd replied. "Now you can save yourself." It was a breakthrough moment for all of us. Derek and I had settled into married life with an ease that surprised those who said wedding stress predicts marriage troubles. We'd been tested by fire before the wedding, emerging stronger and more united. Our home became a haven of honest communication and mutual support. Sunday dinners happened monthly now, with boundaries firmly in place. The first few were awkward, everyone carefully navigating new dynamics, but gradually, authentic relationships began forming where fake ones had existed before. During one such dinner, Mom surprised everyone by sharing her own therapy breakthrough. I realized I was so afraid of conflict that I created bigger conflicts by avoiding small ones, she admitted. Every time I chose Serena's dramatics over Brandy's needs, I was really choosing my own comfort over both daughters' well-being. Dad added his own reflection about mistaking financial provision for emotional support. These conversations, once impossible, became healing opportunities for the entire family. The blog I'd started almost as therapy, Second Daughter Syndrome, exploded beyond my wildest imagination. What began as processing my own experiences resonated with thousands of older siblings, responsible children, and family scapegoats worldwide. The comment sections became support groups, with people sharing their own stories of favoritism and neglect. A literary agent reached out after a particularly viral post about the wedding fund theft, suggesting these stories could help even more people in book form. I wrote the book during early mornings and weekends, Derek bringing me coffee and reading drafts. The dedication read, "To every child who was told they were strong enough to handle unfairness, smart enough to figure it out alone, and mature enough to sacrifice without complaint. You deserved better. It's not too late to demand it." The book tour request that arrived last week felt surreal, but Derek encouraged me to accept. "Your story gives others permission to write their own endings," he said. Serena had read an advance copy, calling me in tears halfway through. "I'm the villain in your story," she said, not accusingly but with dawning awareness. "No," I corrected. "You're a person who was failed by the same system that failed me, just differently. The villains are the patterns we're all working to break." This perspective shift marked another breakthrough in our relationship. We'd never be close friends, too much water under that bridge, but we were becoming real sisters for perhaps the first time. The biggest change came with the news I'd discovered that morning. The positive pregnancy test sat on my desk, waiting for Derek to return from his meeting so I could share it. Our child would enter a family still healing but committed to health. They'd know their worth from conception, never questioning whether they were loved enough, smart enough, important enough. Both sets of grandparents would have relationships based on respect and boundaries, not manipulation and enabling. I thought about the promises we'd make to this child. They'd learn that love multiplies when shared fairly, that strength doesn't mean accepting poor treatment, that family requires work but shouldn't require sacrifice of self. They'd see their parents as partners, their grandparents as humans working to improve, their aunt as someone who faced her demons and won. They'd inherit not perfection but progress, not wealth but wisdom, not fairy tales but truth that led to genuine happiness. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek, leaving meeting early. Had a feeling you needed me. Everything okay? His intuition about me had only grown stronger since marriage. I texted back, everything's perfect. Just something to tell you. His response made me laugh, finally pregnant? I knew that glow wasn't just from the new job. Trust him to figure it out even from across town. This child was already so loved, so wanted, so different from how either of us had started life. The sun set outside my office window, painting the sky in shades of hope. I touched my still flat stomach, whispering promises to the tiny life growing there. You'll be first choice every single day. Your dad and I will make mistakes, but we'll own them. You'll grow up knowing that real love doesn't keep score, doesn't play favorites, doesn't demand silence. You'll be free to be exactly who you are, magnificent and messy and wholly yourself. The cycle hadn't just broken, we built something new in its place. As Derek's key turned in the lock, I stood to meet him, ready to share our next chapter. The girl who'd once accepted crumbs while others ate feasts was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her worth and protected it fiercely. Our child would never know that girl, would never understand accepting less than they deserved. That was the greatest gift we could give, worth more than any wedding fund or inheritance. They'd start life knowing they were enough, had always been enough, would always be enough. The revolution we'd started with our wedding continued with this new life, proof that love, real love, changes everything. What would you do if your family stole from you to fund someone else's fantasy? Have you ever felt like the responsible one who was taken for granted while others got away with everything? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family dramas with hopeful endings. Share this with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, you're already enough, exactly as you are.